So it was interesting. I had to develop this 30-second elevator speech when Dover, the town of Dover, was selected as one of the 100 best places to live for young people by America's Promise, the organization America's Promise. And the reason why America's Promise selected Dover was on the basis of 4 programs that Dover had benefiting young people. And End 68 Hours of Hunger was one of those programs. So I was told by the director of the award ceremony that I was going to be receiving this award, and that I had 30 seconds to say whatever it was that I needed to say. And I'm going, you know, this is so big, this is so important, how can I get this down to 30 seconds? But I actually did, so this is my 30-second elevator speech. Childhood hunger is a nearly invisible problem, and yet there are children in every single community in America who are hungry for 68 hours, from the time they get their free lunch in school on Friday to their free breakfast on Monday morning. End 68 Hours of Hunger is a 100% volunteer organization. We commit 100% of the funds we collect to the purchase of food. We package that food up and we deliver it to the schools. They get right to the children. And what we know is that if we feed these children on the weekends, they have 50% higher reading scores, 30% higher math scores, and are twice as likely to successfully complete the 3rd grade, which is one of the primary indicators of high school graduation. That's the 30-second speech. Now what you're going to get is the whole big long, I'm in front of a community organization and I'm talking about End 68 Hours of Hunger. So, I'm Claire Bloom. In October 2010, I discovered completely by accident, that there were children in my own community of Dover, New Hampshire, who were without food from the time they got their free lunch in school on Friday until the time they got their free breakfast in school again on Monday. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, 68 hours being hungry is a huge, long period of time. I can't go between meals without a snack. So imagine, if you will, being hungry for 68 hours, and now imagine you're 6 years old. I just saw a video on television, as a matter of fact, yesterday. Sesame Street, the children's television workshop who does Sesame Street, just did a video. And one of the things that they did in their video was they interviewed a child, and she said, she's about 8 years old, and she said, sometimes my daddy doesn't have enough money to give me snacks to take to school. And so what I do is I go and I drink water from the water fountain until my tummy's full. And that just broke my heart. And those children are among us. Those children are in our own communities, in every single community that we live in. So the key is knowing what the impact can be if we feed them, knowing that if we can feed those children between Friday afternoon, noontime, and Monday morning breakfast, that they will achieve 50% higher reading scores and 30% higher math scores, that they will be twice as likely to successfully complete the 3rd grade, and that successful completion of the 3rd grade is a leading indicator of high school graduation, then what we know is that if we can feed those children on the weekend, that we have much greater possibility of having those children become productive community members, productive community citizens in their adult years. So that's what we're really about, is trying to help these children grow up, be able to learn. Because here's what the deal is. When you come to school on Monday morning and you're hungry and you've had nothing to eat, you cannot learn. It is impossible for you to focus on your schoolwork. All you can focus on is when your tummy's going to be full, when you're going to have that meal, when you're going to be able to eat again. And so these children arrive at school in the morning, on Monday morning, they are lethargic, they go to the nurse's office, they complain of stomach aches, they complain of headaches, they have no energy, and so they go and they eat breakfast, and they scarf down every single thing on their plate. And after they've scarfed down everything on their plate, they turn around to their neighbors sitting around them, and they say, are you going to eat that? Well, can I have it? Are you going to eat that? Well, can I have it? Are you going to eat that? Oh, is it okay if I take that? And then they take all of that food and they either eat it or they store it away so that they can take it home with them. And then they go to the guidance office and they go to the guidance counselor and they say, excuse me, but do you have any snacks? And then they go to the nurse and they say to the nurse, do you have any snacks? And then they go to their teacher and they say to their teacher, do you have any snacks? And they collect everything that they can and they either eat it immediately or they tuck it away to take home. These children can't possibly learn if all they're focused on is getting some food. And so this is what we see in their behavior on Monday morning. What we see in their behavior on Friday afternoon is come Friday afternoon, about noontime, when they've had their lunch, they suddenly become disruptive. They suddenly start interfering with the normal actions and the ongoing activities of the classroom because they don't want to go home. They don't want to go home because they know that when they get home, there's not going to be anything for them to eat. So a story, a very true, real story, is a young 6-year-old boy came up to his teacher on Friday afternoon crying and said to his teacher, "Is it okay if I just stay here in the classroom over the weekend? I promise you I'll be quiet as a mouse and I won't touch anything, but I know where the crackers are." I mean, that kind of story just breaks my heart, and these are the children that we're reaching out to with this program. So, as I said, in October 2010, I discovered that these children existed in my own community. And just to backtrack a little bit, I'm retired Navy. I retired from the Navy in 1998. And when I retired from the Navy, I thought, this is cool. I get a check every month, whether I wake up early or sleep in late. It's all thanks to you, the American taxpayers. And so I don't have to do anything for the rest of my life thanks to the service that I performed during my younger years. So this is really neat. Well, that money that I get every month now goes to support this program, because 100% volunteer program with 100% of the money buying food, we need some money from someplace to pay for the other things that need to be bought, like shelving units and storage bins and business cards and stationery and brochures and backpacks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So fortunately, we've had some great grants that have come in to pay for some of those things. But when I went and found out that these children were hungry, I couldn't not do something about it. I couldn't know that there were children in our community who were hungry and not do something about it. Here I am retired. Here I am, I've got this money that comes in every month, whether I need it or not. So I went to the school district office in Dover and I said, hey, I just heard that we've got hungry children here in Dover. Is that true? That was my first question. Is that really true? And I was told, oh yes, that's true. We have about 73 children in Dover who are homeless. Now, they're not living in their cars, but they're going from shelter to shelter. They're sleeping one night at grandma's house, and one night at auntie's house, and one night at their dad's house, and one night at the shelter, and then another. They're moving around every single night, sleeping someplace different. Now, how can those children possibly learn, given that when they get up in the morning, they don't know where they're going to be spending the night that night? So these are the children that we're talking about. So once I heard that, I said, okay, what can I do? I said, I've got some money. I can throw some money in it, right? Because that's the easy thing to do. I can just write you a check and you can feed these kids' school system. Well, that wasn't what they wanted. What they really wanted was for somebody to start a program and start the process of bringing food to the school to deliver to these children so that these children could take it home. So I looked up on the internet and I found some models of some programs that had been done elsewhere in the country, and I thought, well, okay, I can do this. I mean, I have my 20 years of Navy experience teaching me organizational skills, and I've got my other experience from over here being able to talk to people, and I've got this experience and that experience. Well, I can put this all together into something that'll work. So that's exactly what I did. And I started out, my very first thing was I applied to the federal government for a 501c3 designation as a charitable organization, because that was my intention, was to be a totally charitable organization. It took, unfortunately, 5.5 months for me to actually get the letter that says you're officially approved by the IRS as being a charitable organization. So in that 5.5 months, I just thought, and I thought, and I thought, and I thought about all the ways that I wanted all this to work, and how it could work, and what model would be the simplest model possible. And put it all together so that the day the letter came, I was off like a shot. So I ran immediately down to Bank of America, which happens to be the bank that I bank at. I don't know what banks you bank at, but I bank at Bank of America. And so I went down there and I said to the branch manager, here's the deal. I just started this not-for-profit. I want to put food in the hands of local children who don't have food on the weekends. And what I want from you is I want a free checking account. Okay, fair enough, right? okay, we can do that, they said. And what's more, we are going to be your first backpacking team. So we're going to come once a month and pack for you and deliver to the schools for the Dover children. So I'm going, well, this is cool, so now I'm on a roll, right? So I go down to Atlantic Mini Storage, and I say to Atlantic Mini Storage, I'm Claire Bloom, and I just started this nonprofit, and I need a storage unit for free that I can store my food and pack my bags. And they said, oh, sure, that's no problem at all. We have plenty of 10 by 30 storage units that we don't have rented right now. I'll give you one right now, and you can have this 10 by 30 storage unit, and you can have it forever. Now I'm really on a roll, right? I have my first banking team, my first packing team, I have my bank account, I have my free storage place, and it just fell like raindrops. My son, who works for Newmarket International in Portsmouth, said, well, Newmarket International will help, we'll set up a backpacking team, and what's more, we'll have this big fundraiser for you. And within 2 weeks, they had taken 60 backpacks and filled them with exactly the food that you see here, and had a big, crazy, fun event, and we walked away with 60 backpacks of food plus more. And they formed another backpacking team. And then I heard from the Dover Democrats, and then I heard from the Dover Women's Club, and everybody wanted a piece of this. You know, there was an article in the newspaper, and everybody wanted to help out. So before I knew it, I had 5 packing teams. I've been in contact with the school system. I had each of the elementary schools tell me how many children that they had that they wanted bags packed for. And the first week of October in 2011, now remember I heard about the hungry children in October 2010, so this is a year. The first week of October in 2011, we delivered 19 bags of food to 19 children in 3 elementary schools in Dover. In June of 2012, 8 months later, we were delivering 78 bags of food to the elementary schools, to the middle school, to elementary schools in Elliott, elementary schools in Somersworth, and started a program in Kittery, Maine. And that's how fast it grew. In September of 2012, this school year that we just finished last June, in September 2012, we started out right where we ended off in June of 2012. We started out with 78 bags of food. Between September of 2012 and June of 2013, we increased to 12 towns and 550 children every week being fed in this 100% volunteer organization that sends 100% of your dollars to buy food. Starting in September this year, we started right where we left off at 550. We're now up to 15 towns, 650 children every week. And oh, by the way, every one of those 15 programs is in the black. None of them are hurting for money. Now, there are a few that are new, that still haven't gotten that fundraising ball rolling, so we still need corporate funding, and we still need people to collect food for us. About 25% of the food that we use, that we give to these children, comes from food donations. So all the items that you brought today, and we'll get a great picture of that, all those items that we brought today, that you brought today, all those items that are collected by churches, by hospitals, by business organizations, every one of those items gets looked at by a volunteer, inspected to make sure that it's not outside its expiration date, make sure that it's appropriate for us to put in the bags to send home to the children. If it's not, we have a food pantry that will take expired food, and we give anything that we can't use to the local food pantry. So it's win-win-win. Everybody wins. And all that food that can be used then gets sorted and put away and gets packed into the bags. And what we found is approximately 25% of the food that we now use comes from food donations. So if it costs us $10 per week to feed a child, and we're talking 44 weeks of the year, so that's $440 to feed one child for a year, 25% of that, or $110 of that, actually is food donations. So we don't have to raise cash, but 75% of what our budget is. And that's been amazing community support. That's been absolutely incredible community support. So that having been said, we're growing. As I mentioned, we're now spreading across the country to California. And this is how we do what we do. We have 2 people who stand up to be counted and say they will be responsible for running a program in a town. Those people are called program coordinators. Program coordinators find the space. The space is critical. We need dedicated space that we have access to 24 hours a day. We don't know when our volunteers are going to want to pack. Some of our volunteers pack on their lunch hour, some of them pack when they get out of work. So we need to have it available to them. And it needs to be secure space so no one can tamper with the food. Then we get the school system buy-in, and the school system says, yes, we will identify the children and give you the number. We don't know any names, it's completely anonymous. We'll just give you a number, and that's the number of bags we want delivered to us on Thursday or on Friday. And then we go out looking for the corporate sponsorship and the food. Those are the pieces that we have to put together to make a program work, and that's all it takes. It's really easy, and I have 6 very simple rules. Very simple rules. You can do anything you want with a program as long as you comply with my 6 simple rules. The rules are, number 1, 100% of the money that you collect buys food. Real simple. If we're 100% volunteer and 100% of the money goes to buy food, nobody can question what it is that we're doing with the money. Number 2, that no expired food can go in a bag. I don't want any child having to eat stuff that we wouldn't eat. So when we have a food drive and you clean out, not you personally, but when we have a food drive and people clean out their cupboards and dump all the stuff that they don't want into the bag and then deliver it to us, we sort through it and we make sure that it's all good food. If you won't eat it, I won't send it to the children to eat. Number 3, the food all must be factory wrapped. So I can't take a big giant bag of Cheerios, open it up, put it in baggies, and send it home in baggies. No, the food that goes in the bags all has to be 100% factory wrapped food. So those are the 3 primary rules about the food in the bags. No child can be denied their bag on Friday because of something they did or didn't do in the school. I understand that the school has to teach children responsibility, not with my food. You find another way to get those kids to learn what it is you want them to learn. So that's a 4th rule. A 5th rule is pretty simple. Before you go ask somebody for money, please check with me first and make sure that I don't have another program asking that same person for money. And I know you guys got caught up in that because we had 2 programs that came to Bottom Line for money. And I said, well, Bottom Line was approached first by this program. And then Rob said, heck, I'll give money to all of them. And that's exactly what he's been doing. So I don't question anymore who gets money from Bottom Line. You know, you can all have money from Bottom Line. You guys have been enormously generous. But I do ask for people to let me know before they approach someone so that we don't look unprofessional, so that we look like we know what we're doing. And then finally, I ask people to report to me their financial status monthly. I want to see all the goes-ins and all the goes-outs, so I see whether they're in the black or whether they're in the red or whether they're approaching the red. And that's just a matter for me since I'm doing the ultimate reporting to the IRS. I'm the one who needs to know that. And those are the 6 simple rules that we follow. And above and beyond that, you can run your program anywhere you want to. I don't control what people put in the bags. I don't control if they use backpacks or if they use grocery bags. I leave it to them to do that. So we've written an actual operations manual, and the operations manual tells them, okay, here's the basic idea. The basic idea is over here we have the demand side. The demand side comes from the school. It's just like a production model for a manufacturing company. Over here we have our demand. The demand comes from the school. The school says, this is how many bags I need this week for this many children. Then I have my production team. My production team is those groups of volunteers that come in, scurry around, fill all the bags, put them in their cars, and take them off and deliver them to the school. So that's my supply side and my production side. And then I have, my demand side and my production side. Then I have the supply side. Supply side is the magic that happens that makes sure that when those production teams come in to pack, there's food there. So that includes buying food from grocery stores. That includes sorting through donated food and making sure that the donated food is all okay. And that includes all the little bits and pieces that make sure that the food is there to be put in the bags. So that's the supply side, the demand side, and the production side. And that's basically how we operate. So the way the operation is set up, it can be plunked down in any community, anywhere, as long as we have those 2 program coordinators, the school support, the space to store and pack the food, and the corporate funding and the individual funding and the food donations available. So that's who we are, what we do, and how we do it. Now, I'm sure you have some questions, and I want those questions. Just understand that you are going to be on a video when you ask the questions, and if there's a question I want you to ask that you haven't asked, then I'll ask it, so that it gets on the video. So go ahead and tell me, anybody have any questions? Any questions? Yes?
Claire, I have first a statement, then a question. Dynamic, just dynamic. Brought me to some tears, my heart's like pounding, so excited for this. My question to you is, how do the schools reach out to the families?
Great question.
How do they identify these children so the program does work at home for them?
Fabulous question. So how do the schools identify the children? Do you remember I mentioned those behaviors that those children exhibit? Well, if the school personnel are being astute and being observant, they observe those behaviors and they know who those children are. So when we bring the program to the school department and we say, are you interested in having a program in your town? What they then do is they pick up the telephone and they call the parents. And they say to the parents, you know, we just think that you might be interested in this program. We don't say, you look poor, your kids look hungry, your kids are starving. The school personnel say, we have a new program coming in and we think you might be interested. Here's how it works. We will send a bag of food home, non-perishable food, home with your child every Friday, and you can have that over the weekends. And it doesn't cost you anything, and your child remains anonymous. Are you interested? Almost to 100%, the parents say yes. Now, interestingly, in some communities that differs. For example, I was just speaking to some folks in a town that were talking about starting a program, and they were very worried because their town culturally is a group of folks who really perceive themselves to be very self-sufficient. And so they're worried that people will not say yes even when offered this opportunity. But almost universally, the parents do recognize that their children are being hungry, and they say yes, and then they get signed up. There's a permission slip that the school system sends home to the parents to sign their permission that the child be enrolled in the program. It's another opportunity for them to express in writing if their child has any allergies, because we do need to accommodate allergies. We do have, interestingly, we have our first gluten-free allergy this year. We've oddly enough not had any peanut allergies, which I would have expected, but we don't have any peanut allergies. We have gluten allergies, and last year we had a citrus allergy. So we just had to be careful about the fruit that we sent home. So that gives the parent another opportunity to say if their child has an allergy. And then we never see those permission slips. It's just for the school. So again, we have no idea who the children are, but the parents have been enormously grateful for it. And even those children who go home at night to a shelter, doesn't matter. They take their food home with them and they share it with the other kids who are in the shelter. So did I answer that okay?
100%.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Yes, Heather?
I just had a question in relation to Sue's question. Do they ever, send flyers home with every single student kind of to say this program is available so that maybe those that hide it a little better, that a teacher might not notice right away, still have that opportunity to participate in the program?
One of our programs did just that.
Okay.
The way they approached the program was through their food service officer knew, we don't know who's on Title I. We don't know who gets free or reduced lunch. So their food service officer did. So the food service officer first said, I'm just going to send this letter home to all of the kids who are on free or reduced lunch. And then one of the school personnel said, well, wait a minute, that's not fair because some people may really be hungry although not qualify for free or reduced lunch. They sent it to all of the children in the school. They sent it home to all the children in the school. The results, interestingly, were the same as all of those other ones that just identified the kids. Roughly 10 to 15% of those children who were on free or reduced lunch. So it didn't really generate any bang for that buck, but we did have a program that did that, and I'm totally okay with that. Yeah, I don't care. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a story. I have a good friend who's a nanny for a very wealthy family, and even though she's a nanny for a very wealthy family, she has to work really hard to get those kids fed because, see, mom and dad go out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so they don't grocery shop. And because they don't grocery shop, there's not food in the house for these children. so my friend has to go out and figure out how to scrounge food to feed these children of this very wealthy family because the parents are focused on their own social lives and not on their children. So it can happen in wealthy families as well as in poor families, and it's really sad. Thanks. Any other questions? Yes?
When the children pick up the backpacks at the end of the week, are there different style backpacks so that you don't stand out from other kids?
Awesome question. Very good question. Thank you. For those programs that use backpacks, we buy the backpacks from Five Below. Five Below has about 50 different varieties of backpacks, and we take 2 of these and 2 of these and 2 of these and 2 of these. The complication with the backpacks, interestingly enough, is that where we're using backpacks, in addition to knowing a number of students, we also need to know boys and girls. Because see, a girl will take a black backpack home, but a boy won't take a pink backpack home. So we need to make sure that we have the right number of girl and boy backpacks when we deliver to the schools. So yes, they, and then most of the programs these days are using double bag grocery bags. So yeah, great question. Yes?
This is a program during the school year.
Yes.
Is there anything that is out there that helps kids during the summertime when school is not in session?
Awesome question. Several of our programs have worked through the school system to make sure that the children get fed during the summer, and they have summer programs. Milton, for example, has a program through the Recreation Center. Milton's a fairly small town, both in terms of numbers of population and geography, and most of the kids wind up at the rec center during the summer, so they just deliver the bags to the rec center and the kids take them home from there. In Kittery, they deliver them to the town hall, and the kids come to the town hall and pick them up. This past summer, which is the second summer that Kittery's been operating a summer program, there were 3 children in the program during the school year who could not get to the town hall. So by special permission of the parents allowed their anonymity to be given to one of our volunteers, and our volunteer literally takes the bag of food to the home and delivers it to the child every week. So there are all kinds of combinations of things that have happened to make that all possible. Yes?
You do get some notes back in the backpacks, right? Can you share some of those?
We did. We have gotten some of the most, we've gotten some of the most amazing notes from children and from their parents in the backpacks when we were using backpacks. You know, every time when we were refilling them, we'd make sure that they were all empty. And once we got a note, it was all folded up, and there was a dollar bill in the note. And the note was from the child that said, "Thank you so very much." And it was just this note wrapped around this dollar bill. You know, we've just gotten so many of those little notes like that. And because we don't have any contact with the children, that's the only way, the only feedback we get from the children, that what we're doing makes a difference. You know, thank you, Jesus, for what you do. You know, we get all these kinds of little notes, and what we do when we get them is we paste them up on the wall so that all the volunteers can see them and can see these notes coming back. Now that we're using grocery bags, we no longer get the grocery bags back, so we don't get notes as much as we do, but the programs that are still using backpacks do still get notes, and they share them with us. When we have a program coordinator meeting, they come and they all tell their little stories about what it is that's going on.
Yeah, tell them about Becky Powsden, because she gets to see the children.
Oh, Becky Paston's the guidance counselor at Dover Middle School, and she says that it's one of the biggest joys of her week is when she passes out the bags to the children, because we never see the children's faces when they get the bags, but she says the children come in and they grab their bags and they are so excited and so happy to have them, and she gets the joy of seeing that. Now, interestingly, in the elementary schools, that's the middle school, in the elementary schools, the children get their bags not as they're walking out the door, but they get them a little earlier, right before the school day ends, and it's so cute when we hear from the teachers that the kids run, grab their bags, bring them back, throw them open in the classroom, and say, "Look what I've got! You know, look what I get to take home this weekend." Another great story, and this again, so many of these stories just break my heart. But another great story, and is from the Kittery program. The guidance counselor identified a 6-year-old girl who looked like she could benefit from the program, got permission from the parents, and then called the 6-year-old girl into her office, closed the door, and said, and I don't know what the child's name is because I'm not supposed to know what the child's name is, but let's just say the child's Mary, said, "Mary, we talked to your mom, and we thought it would be a great idea if every weekend when you leave school, we gave you this bag of food to take home with you. And the guidance counselor opened up the bag and started taking out the food and putting it out so that the child could see it. And the child was, oh, you know, that's so terrific. And then the counselor put the food all back in the bag, and the child reached out and grabbed it and wrapped her arms around it like this and wouldn't let go. And the counselor said, honey, don't worry about it. I'm going to make sure that this bag is on your bus when you go home today. Oh, but can I just hold it for a minute? She said. You know, I mean, these stories, the difference that we're making in these children's lives is just incredible, just incredible. There are a couple questions I usually get asked that nobody's asked, so because I want to make sure they're on the video, let me just ask them to myself, and we'll see where that goes. One of them I was talking about with somebody I've lost track already, your HR person. The question is, how do you know the children are really getting the food? Anybody have that question? Were you thinking about it in your mind? How do you know the children are really getting the food? And that is a very, very good and valid question, because in some cases these children come from homes where the things that they get don't belong to them, that their parents take them away and their parents do what their parents want to do. But here's the really cool thing about this program. Remember I mentioned that here are the behaviors that the students exhibit that show us that they're hungry? Those behaviors disappear. That's how we know the children get the food, because those behaviors are gone. They now come into school on Monday morning, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to learn, eager, you know, excited about being in school, and not coming in lethargic with headaches and stomach aches and that kind of stuff going on. So that's how we know the children are getting the food. Another question I often get asked that's a very hard question is, why isn't somebody doing something about these parents? Why are these parents not feeding their children, and why isn't somebody doing anything about that? And again, I'm going to say that's a very valid, a very good question. Unfortunately, that's beyond the scope of what Ed 68 Hours of Hunger is designed to do. The fact is that the school system personnel are required to report to DHS if they believe that a child is not being sufficiently fed. So those people do get reported to DHS, and DHS is supposed to investigate. But here's the reality. You know, everybody wants smaller government, because smaller government means it costs us less money, and it means less taxes, and then we can use our own money the way we want to use our money. I mean, that's true. Everybody wants smaller government. But the fact of the matter is smaller government means, among other things, that you have fewer people in DHS who can go out and investigate all of these issues. So the fact is that DHS focuses on child sexual abuse, child physical abuse, and by the time we get down to neglect and malnutrition, there's nobody left to investigate anymore. So those cases don't get investigated. And so they just kind of just stay on the rolls as folks that are perhaps abusing their children in a different way, but they don't actually ever get resolved. So the fact is it's not in 68 Hours of Hunger's job to fix the parents. Our job is to put food in the hands of the children that the children can eat without parental involvement, that will allow them to come to school ready to learn.
Why don't you put healthier food in the backpack?
Great question. Why do we not put healthier food in the backpacks? We do have some relationships with some of our programs with local farmers who give us the results of, you know, things that they don't necessarily sell on the market, or they just donate to us, fresh apples, fresh cucumbers, potatoes, and things like that. Some of those foods some foods we're not able to use. So for example, imagine, if you will, our volunteers are packing and they put a banana in there. And then it gets dumped in their car, then it gets out of their car and put in the office, and then it gets picked up by a kid, and then it gets taken home. Just imagine what that banana is going to look like by the end of that day. So there are some foods, fresh foods, good foods, healthy foods, that we're unable to use for that. Now, oranges are great, apples are great, potatoes are great, and carrots are great. We get donated those foods, we absolutely use them. But some of the issues that we deal with and that we've decided to just make a stand on is that we only buy non-perishable food, because we don't know exactly how long that food is going to be before it actually gets into the hands of the children. So let's say here's a school that asks for 20 bags, we deliver 20 bags, but one of the children that would normally take a bag is absent. So that child doesn't get that bag, so that bag sits there for another week. Now, imagine what happens to milk or, yogurt or some of those other healthy foods. It can't sit there for a week. So we've made the commitment to non-perishable food. We're trying to be as healthy as we can with non-perishable food, but on the other hand, we also have the issue of calories versus nutrition. So for example, everybody knows it would be much healthier for us to put in canned green beans and canned peas and canned carrots instead of ramen noodles and macaroni and cheese. But the thing is, canned green beans and canned carrots have no calories. And what we're talking about is feeding children who need calories. They need calories in order to be able to nourish their bodies and function. So we put in the foods that we, A, know the children will eat, B, have as much protein as we can manage to get in the foods because we know how important the protein is, and C, will be non-perishable. And that's our focus in terms of how we choose the food. Now, as an example, I have here a bag of generic equivalent of Fruit Loops. Okay, we no longer use this. We now use cereals with no food coloring and much less sugar. And we've got an agreement with the stores to order those for us so that we're no longer doing sugar-laden cereals. It doesn't have quite as many calories, but it's more whole grains and it's more healthy for the children. So we do the best we can to make sure that they get a combination of the calories that they need and the nutritional food that they need.
I thought the grocery store's been helpful to you at all.
Great question. The grocery stores have been, he's a plant. The grocery stores have been amazing. Now, the profit margin on grocery items is very, very low. They make their business on the basis of volume. So they cannot, none of them can give us a discount on the food that we buy. However, what they do is if they have an item that goes on sale, they will let us know so that if it's an item that we use, they will special order those sale items so that we can buy in bulk on those sale items. So that's one of the things that the grocery stores do. Another thing that the grocery stores do, and almost all of them now are doing it, Walmart started. I know there are a lot of people who want a Walmart bash, and I understand that you might want a Walmart bash. I got to tell you, for our purposes, Walmart has been amazing. So what Walmart does is we prepare our grocery order in advance, and we order, most of our programs order food a month at a time. So, for example, the Dover program is feeding 80 children. They order a month's worth of food at a time. That's $3,700, basically, that goes to Walmart as a food order. And it's a single food order by UPC code. We have all the Walmart UPC codes. We walk that order into Walmart and give it to the grocery manager. We know who they are. They've all been identified. They all look for us. We give it to them, and at the top of that order it says, when the order's ready, call such and such a number. And then we walk away. And 5 days later or 6 days later, they call us, and we go to Walmart, and we go up to the customer service counter, and we say, we're here from End 68 Hours of Hunger, and they say, okay. And the next thing we know, guys are wheeling wheelie carts out of the back and up to the dedicated cash register where they scan the bulk barcodes, we swipe our debit card, and they load it in our cars for us. Now, I'm telling you, as a person who started this program, shopping, filling up a cart, taking it out to the car, coming back, getting another cart, filling a cart, taking it out to the car, that is huge. That is absolutely huge. And so because Walmart started doing that, we started telling other grocery stores what Walmart was doing, and now they're doing it too. So Market Basket and Hannaford's and Shaw's are all taking our order in advance, picking up all the food, getting it all together, and walking it out and loading it up into our cars for us. So, it's just the cooperation has been fabulous. Any other questions? Yes?
So you've spoken about setting up charities. You obviously have a lot of people here who's brought some food with them today. What else can we do?
Great question. Thank you so much for asking that. Every one of you has a life outside of Bottom Line Technologies. And I know that, and everybody knows that. So I'd ask for you, since Bottom Line Technologies is already being so amazingly supportive, I would ask you to look at areas outside your Bottom Line Technologies life and say, okay, what can we do in those areas? So if you're a member of a church, go to that church and ask that church to set up bins so that you can collect food on a weekly basis, and we will come out and we will pick that food up on a weekly basis from the church. If you're a member of the Kiwanis, or you're a member of the Rotary Club, or you're a member of the Lions Club, or you're a member of the Masons, or a member of the Shriners, or a member of the Boy Scouts, or a member of the Girl Scouts, or any one of those other great things, then I would ask you to see if you can't do a food drive through those organizations, or do a fundraiser through those organizations. Do something with that organization outside your bottom line life. If it's just your family and you want to do something as your family, then encourage your children, for example, when it's their birthdays. Instead of having a birthday party, why don't we have a peanut butter and jelly drive? And instead of presents, we'll get peanut butter and jelly and we'll go deliver that to end 68 Hours of Hunger. And we'll meet you at the door and we'll greet your child and we'll tell them thank you and we'll take your picture with them and then we'll let them help put the food away and we'll let them pack a backpack so that they can see what that's all like. So, I mean, use your creativity. I am not a creative person. If you really look at all the things that I have done, it's just been, it's just been organization and just stamping it out and just one step in front of the other. I am very much a one step in front of the other person. And Rob is challenging me so much with that. And he's asking me to think in terms of going national and think in terms of this, and my head is spinning. But I don't invent these ideas. I get them from somebody else, and then when I get this great idea from somebody else, then I can go and figure out the pieces to make it happen. Use your creativity, use your ingenuity, use your innovativeness, use all of that to come up with ways that you can think of to make it happen. You like to run? Go get some runners to go run 100 miles and get sponsors to run 100 miles in a month or 100 miles in 2 months. And say, okay, sponsor me to run 100 miles for end 68 Hours of Hunger. That's something that an individual can do. I mean, anything that you can come up with, we're delighted to have it happen. We've got, one little girl had a birthday party, and instead of presents, she asked for donations. And she came to me, it was so funny, her dad showed up, came to me with this stack of cash like this. And then there were checks in there too. She had over $600 that she had accumulated. Christmas. Send me a note. I want to do something in honor of my dad for Christmas. Instead of a Christmas present, I want to give him a certificate. We do certificates for Mother's Day, for Father's Day, for anniversaries, for birthdays, for Christmas, for Hanukkah, you name it. We'll do a certificate for you in honor of that person and send it to you to give to them on the holiday to acknowledge your donation on their behalf. So, great question. Thank you for that question.
Glad. You've come a long way in 2 years, but where do you see this program in 5 years' time?
Well, our vision is ending childhood Our vision is ending childhood hunger in America, one school at a time. So it won't be in my time. I mean, I'm 67 years old. I've already told the board you have to replace me by the year 2020. January 1st, 2020, I'm done. I'll be 73 at that point. Thank you very much. But I think I'll need to be doing other things. But my vision is that one day there'll be not a single hungry child in America. And that's a great, and it's something we can do one school at a time. It's something we can do if we just go start in this school, then you go to this school, then go to this school. And it's something that fortunately has really grabbed the attention of corporate America and grabbed the attention of individuals. They see that 100% of the money we collect buys food, and they go, that's a no-brainer. Well, Liberty Mutual is the opposite. I mean, I don't know if Bottom Line does this, but Liberty Mutual has a Liberty Gives Back program, and every one of their employees who designates a donation to end 68 Hours of Hunger or any other charity, Liberty matches half of that. So once a quarter, I get these checks from Liberty Gives Back, and I have access to a log-on screen that tells me the names of all the people who donated, and I can do individual thank you letters that go out to those folks to tell them thank you very much for their donations. Bank of America does that too through the Easy Match program. There's a program called Easy Match. You can make a donation out of your own paycheck. Every paycheck, X number of dollars, whatever you want to donate. Then the company matches, Liberty, in Liberty's case, they match it half. So I get 1.5 times your donation from them. And then that check comes in, and we just say thank you, thank you, thank you. So there are lots of cool things.
We don't match, actually. What we do, though, is we have the employee choice, which you actually don't. The employee doesn't give any money, and whatever amount is available, a quarter goes out. So it's better than a match. We match zero. What's
Yes, cool. Sir?
How do you involve high school students? They have an enormous amount of energy and excitement. Have you
tried that?
We have. As a matter of fact, Berwick Academy brought their whole senior class out to pack one week, and that was really fun. There are little issues with the high schoolers. They all don't have transportation. To be a packing team, you've got to not only be able to come out and pack, but you also have to turn around and take the food away and deliver it to the schools. I've encouraged, I've gotten a lot of phone calls, interestingly, from parents. This is another interesting phenomenon. I'm calling because my son needs to do community service. Can you give me You all know what that's like. Why isn't your son calling? Okay, so I tell them, okay, here's a great idea for a community service project. Not one single student has followed up on that. So, I mean, but yeah, as much as possible, as much as we can, we absolutely do. Exeter has done a phenomenal job within the school system, within the sports program. Now, anytime there's an Exeter High School sports activity, all the students and all the parents bring food. It's just already ingrained in the culture now of the Exeter program. You go to a sports activity, you bring food. And that's just, and that was done through the high school. So, as a matter of fact, the gals who are running the Exeter program are doing a fundraising training at our next program coordinator meeting because they have been going bananas. They have a year's worth of money in the bank. So, I mean, they've just been fundraising wizards, and I want all my program coordinators to get to do that. My husband's telling me I need to shut up. Any other questions?
Shut up. We, like your idea, kind of like the present, we actually we had a board meeting yesterday, and we typically give the board members a shirt or some sort of gift. And Jen had the idea, she said, they probably have enough shirts, which is true. So we took the money instead, and then we multiplied it by like 10 or 20, and we gave a check for $5,000.
You guys are over the top.
And we can use that money to start new programs, right?
Yeah.
Cool. That's the
What we
money.
need.
Every time we start a new program, it costs about $1,500.
Well, the other thing we've said is, make sure everybody can hear me, when we started getting involved in this, what we said is if they are starting a program in your town, doesn't have to be you starting.
Right,
If they're
any of
starting
you.
a program in your town, let us know, and we'll give $1,000 to that, to seed that. So we've done that in several towns already, and people have actually called in from Alpharetta. Can they do something there? So it might be one of the ways that we help spread this to other geographies. But any new town, bottom line starts with $1,000 into that, which, by the way, I get to hand that check. That comes, though, from all of you. It comes from all the stuff waiters do as a business. It comes from selling. It comes from winning. And it comes from delighting our customers and the success of our business. That's how we can then do the right thing as a board organization.
And we appreciate every single penny of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, I'm switching off the videos.
Okay.
Talk freely.
Jen, what's next?
We have box lunches for everyone to take on their way out, and thank you so much for being involved with this today.
Thank you. It's